I thought of Tarpley over the weekend as I was doing research because I had remembered months ago when they had the gate crashers at the White House and how they talked about how he wasn't safe in the White House. And Tarpley tied it in with some other news, and I've learned to respect what he has to say as piercing understanding. He said these were threats to Obama and that they were opening the public mind and creating kind of a track that Obama is going to be assassinated. There's already been a huge discussion of this in the media. Then I started seeing Sean Hannity and other neocon mouthpieces like Glenn Beck saying 9/11 truthers will try to kill Obama. Now, 9/11 truthers are against violence. 9/11 truthers expose false flag. 9/11 truthers expose Obama as a puppet. They're nonpartisan. It's been proven. Under Bush, they said we were liberals. Now under Obama, they say we're right-wingers. And they talk about, oh, my gosh, Deborah Medina might be a 9/11 truther, and the Democratic candidate in Texas is openly questioning 9/11. It's like everybody is. And the polls show that. And so depending on the poll, 36% to 84%, they vary widely in Angus and Reid and Gallup and Scripps Howard News Service polls. But let's say 50%. Let's take the medium. Let's take the middle here. When they try to stage an attack on the Christmas day, you got 9/11 truthers, people that are tuned in on board. They notice he was led on, protected. Somebody else had a bomb. The FBI says they're liars. A month later, it comes out. The FBI reverses their story. Okay, we helped them get on the plane, as a part of an intelligence operation. I want to talk about that with Tarpley as well. We may even keep a little bit in the next hour because I'm getting to him late here. But again, there's so much data that goes into this. I'm always trying to give listeners a picture of my mind and my understanding. But then when I saw Glenn Beck start saying on the radio and TV the last 3 weeks, and I'm just spot checking him, and I tune in, he calls for a new value-added tax, a new sales tax to pay the bankers, another bailout. I tune in, he's for the Patriot Act. I tune in, same thing with O'Reilly. 9/11 truthers want to kill the president. No evidence, they're just saying this. Who's their number one enemy? According to White House regulations are that Obama's now operating under, saying he'll just use executive orders to circumvent everything. 9/11 truthers. What does Northcom and Homeland Security say their big enemy is? Christians, conservatives, returning veterans, gun owners, 9/11 truthers, in the fetters. People that are awake, populist, constitutionalist. And so I see them openly saying 9/11 truth is going to try to kill him. And Beck's like, I'm predicting it, mark my words. They love to act like prophets. So we know, that's how I knew they were going to launch 9/11. I saw them introducing bin Laden as the boogeyman. He's going to get you. He's going to attack you. I knew the feds had cooked the bomb, trained the driver in 93. I knew they'd already attacked the World Trade Center. I knew they had foreign operatives running the World Trade Center and a bunch of other data. I said they're going to attack it the next few months, blame it on bin Laden. I was right. 3 months before the flu outbreak, I got government documents. They were getting ready to stage something on flu. Told you. It's the same thing here. They are planning to attempt to kill Obama. He's probably in on it. It'll be staged like 10 years ago with the situation in Taiwan with their president staging a shooting of himself, and it came out it was fake. They did a fake grazing and just had some blanks go off and a little fake cut he put on himself. So this is done over and over again, or they could really kill him. And that's why I've got Webster Tarpley on to break this down and give us his take on it from his slightly different perspective from mine. It's not that we disagree. I just want to get his view on it. But key article up on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Obama is being blackmailed into attacking Iran. Neocons hype assassination attempt on president to be blamed on political extremist. And this is why this is important. Dovetail with all this, they say, if you attack Iran, we're going to support you. Sarah Palin, Beck have all said it. If you don't, the 9/11 truthers will kill you. So the message is, we're going to kill you and blame it on our opposition if you don't do this. Now, let's see if Webster Griffin Tarpley agrees with my analysis. I didn't talk to him before he went on air. You're going to find out with me right now. Dr. Tarpley, do you agree, and what can you add?
Well, I think you've certainly identified a real problem. Maybe we take a couple of steps backward, though, because I think it's a complex problem. During the election campaign, the idea that Obama's life was in danger was largely a myth spread by his own campaign, I think, by his own followers. They had a deep emotional need to believe that Obama was in danger, because this helped to mask the fact that he was so obviously a Wall Street puppet. In other words, he was a wholly owned subsidiary of Wall Street, but somehow the emotional need of the Obama supporter was to view him as somebody who was an anti-establishment rebel and insurgent and therefore in grave danger because he was...
So is this Beck trying to invoke Democrats to hate 9/11 truthers?
Well, I think that's now a different phase. Now, let's also look at what the idea that Obama needs to be blackmailed in order to attack Iran, I think, is also probably not germane. Obama ran as a warmonger, right? We have to remember he ran as the guy who was going to bomb Pakistan unilaterally without talking to the Pakistani government. He was very, very adamant about that, and he was going to win the war in Afghanistan. And we had this famous incident where Obama said, I'm going to send assassins and I'm going to send predator drones into Pakistan to get Obama where he lives. And Hillary Clinton said, no, this is too much. McCain said it's too much. And even Bush said, no, it's too much, because I talked to my friend Musharraf there, who was running Pakistan at the time.
Only the fake liberal could get away with expanding war. So
right, now that's one phase. Now, if we look at Obama has had these, I think, 3 incidents, right? We have the Salahis on the night of the Manmohan Singh state dinner back in December. We had another guy who got in the same night. So there were 2 incidents counting 3 people that night. And then apparently a month before that, there was a middle-aged black war veteran and his wife who got into a breakfast. So it's a total of 3 incidents. 5 people got in who should not have gotten in. Now, Obama would have been well advised to fire the head of the Secret Service, which he didn't do.
We're going to skip this break because this is so important. I do this occasionally.
But
Webster, continue.
Let's compare this, right? Let's compare it to some others, right? Because what I would argue is that Obama's treatment has been relatively mild so far. Ronald Reagan, what did he have? He had Hinckley shooting at him. So I think that's a pretty clear one. Gerald Ford had at least 2 people, right? He had Lynette Squeaky Fromm and Sarah Jane Moore shooting at him. In the case of Clinton, it's often forgotten. In 1993-94, there were lots of really rough things done to Clinton. His helicopter crashed, killing 3 or 4 Marines who were flying that Marine One. There was a guy in the D.C. City Council here who was a political friend of Clinton's by the name of Wilson, who was found hanged in his apartment. And then you've got Vince Foster. Now, I always viewed Vince Foster as the intelligence community murdering a person in Clinton's immediate entourage in order to intimidate him. Other people saw it as Clinton doing this. I don't see how that makes any sense. What makes sense to me is that's the intelligence community doing that, right, up here in Fort Marcy, above the Potomac. You also had in Clinton's... a little bit later in the Clinton presidency, you had this case where a light plane actually crashed into the side of the White House, not so far from Clinton's office, right? That was a few years on. In the case of Bush, we have to remember 9/11 itself was full of threats to Bush, and I've written about this at great length, right? There were reports coming to Bush that there was an attack going on his ranch, that there were other planes were going to come crash into Air Force
He
One.
ran away scared, so clearly he's such a delusional puppet. You're saying from your research he was only let in on it later?
Sure, he's a very low-level participant in this, and indeed, the centerpiece of 9/11 is Angel is Next. I have a whole chapter about Angel is Next in my book on 9/11, which is a direct threat to Bush. In other words, if you don't do what we want, which is to declare the war of civilizations against Iraq and get going and start saying Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and terrorism and all this, then something bad is going to happen to you. So you can see that compared to other presidents, this has not been very rough, right? Obama has now got these incidents, 3 incidents, 5 people. He's also got a significant number of death threats, but he's also a couple of people have already been sentenced to jail for threatening Obama. But I think on the whole, this is not the roughest treatment that we've seen in recent years, although it unmistakably is a reminder to Obama that he is a puppet, and he better remember that he's a puppet. I think what we saw in the case of the Christmas patsy, with the State Department now revealing through this guy, Undersecretary of State for Management, Patrick Kennedy, they've revealed that there was a desire in the State Department, an intention in the State Department to revoke the visa of the Detroit Christmas patsy, Mutalab, but that this revoking of the visa was blocked by a U.S. agency, which he refused to name in public. He wouldn't tell you who it was. But somebody came forward and said, no, we're putting a national security override on this. We're flagging this guy's name because we're tailing him, we're watching him, we've got eyes on him. He's going to lead us to some really big fish, so therefore you can't touch him. He's immune. And, of course, that's the classic method that a mole uses to protect the patsy. The mole's responsibility is to make sure that the patsy got through.
And we see that with Oklahoma City. We see it with 9/11. In every case, the shoe bomber, the government gets them on the plane. The government causes a stand down. Well, they're always being trained at, but Webster.
Rather than say, Alex, rather than say government, see, in this case you see...